The Hornets get absolutely destroyed over the weekend. They did not make history, but it was close enough. How can we get a Hornets team that beats LA, that hangs with Denver, and then gets beat by what feels like 60 to Portland? We'll try to answer those questions. We'll rummage through the Sicko Satchel all today on Locked On Hornets.
60,000.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. He has a Substack. It's called everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can also text him.
And we mean it.
Yeah,
every single one.
Yeah, every single box score, even that ugly one that the Hornets posted over the weekend. You can also text them about it. The subtext information is in the show notes. Plus, listen to Doug on Locked On NBA. He is the host alongside Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And something else we're doing every day, it's the newsletter, the new Locked On Hornets daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now, lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. If you get beat by more than 50, do you have to give up your podcast for a week or a month or some period of time to the other podcast host? Because if so, no. Mike Richmond will be your new host for the next week or next couple of weeks. Or is that actually a punishment for Mike, that he has to do the Trailblazers and the Hornets? Either way, I'm glad that we don't have to do that, because this loss would call for that if any loss did. 141-88. The Hornets suffer that defeat at the hands of the Trailblazers. It was on the West Coast. The only redeeming thing I can say about this loss is that at least it wasn't at home. Other than that, I got nothing for you, Doug. What were you writing about on your Substack?
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't an historic loss, but it matched an historic loss. 53 points. That matched the largest margin of defeat in Hornets history, set last season.
I know.
In a 135 to 82 defeat at the hands of the Philadelphia 76ers. There are only 31 other beatdowns in league history that were larger, including a Hornets 61-point victory in 2017-18 over the Memphis Grizzlies. That was by 61.
You know what? It was before I was doing Locked On Hornets, but I don't remember that game. And I hate that I don't remember that game.
I attended that game. That was at home. I attended that game.
Yeah. I wish I was on the other side of this. Like, I want to be on the other side of this, because I do remember the blowout that they suffered last year. I don't remember experiencing the 60-point blowout, though the win, I should say. But either way, the Hornets did not get the win over the weekend. So, like, how do you even recap this, Doug? I mean, it was over from the beginning, really. The thing, and that's probably not fair, because Charles Lee said after the game that this was the first time that the Hornets just didn't have anything in any quarter, in any half. If they have dug themselves into a large hole, that they would be able to come back out of that hole and actually, not even a fake comeback, Doug. They would actually really contend in the second half with some of these teams that put them down 15, 20 even in the first half. There was no real comeback. There was no fake comeback in this game. So in the first quarter, they went down 17, and then they go into the locker room allowing, what was it? Did they allow 80 points in this one? It was close to it. So here you go. Like, how do you even recap this game?
Well, I can start by starting with what I did on the Every Hornets box score recap, which is, if you're here right now wanting to talk about this loss, first of all, why? But second of all, if you're still here, then I think you're probably wondering to yourself, like, how does a Hornets team that beat the Lakers and that played decently against the Nuggets before giving up the ghost in the fourth quarter get absolutely housed by a Portland Trailblazers team that doesn't have 30 wins on the season? And the answer to me is that it has nothing to do with the Charlotte Hornets. The win against LA didn't have anything to do with the Charlotte Hornets. The staying close with Denver didn't have anything to do with the Charlotte Hornets. And getting housed by the Portland Trail Blazers didn't have anything to do with the Charlotte Hornets. Because frankly, when your team does not have an identity, then you take on whatever identity the opposing team is going to allow you to take. So LA hung over after the All-Star break and trying to get Luka in a rhythm, gave the Hornets opportunity after opportunity to be in that game. And to the Hornets' credit, they took it. Same thing with Denver. That Denver team looked nothing like a Denver Nuggets team that I've seen that had won 9 or 8 in a row coming into that game, and then eventually beat the Charlotte Hornets. But like for 3 quarters, that did not look like the Denver Nuggets that I know. And so again, the Hornets took that opportunity. Portland, on the other hand, looked exactly like the Portland team that I've been seeing recently, which is a team that has been playing with their hair on fire. They take everything seriously. They have to take every game seriously because they want to get in the play-in, and they've got a lot of young players who are really hitting their stride right now. And you saw it on full display, whether it was Shaedon Sharpe getting open for 3, whether it was Scoot Henderson just bulldozing past Nick Smith Jr., Jabari Walker was just all over the place, and he was beating our guards. He was beating our centers. But that's a team that was playing absolutely with their hair on fire, and they came in with the mindset, we're going to get physical with the Hornets ball handlers. We're going to beat this team up. And the Hornets, because they don't have an identity, they said, okay, sure, why not?
So, yeah, that's interesting because this is the first time we've discussed the Hornets not having an identity. We've talked about them getting destroyed. We've talked about them not being a very good basketball team. But I think we go into a different realm when you don't have an identity, because now that's a failure by the coach. If your team does not have an identity, even with all of the injuries, which, okay, that is an absolute legitimate excuse, but it feels like not having an identity is an indictment on the coach. Like, if you were to ask me, Walker, what are the Hornets' identity going in? I would say, well, they've really started to focus on defense a lot more. They're doing a better job of not protecting or not allowing guys to get to the paint as much. Offensively, they're going to shoot a lot of threes. Their idea, when they're even relatively healthy, is to kick out to open shooters. They're really going to try to attack the corner as much as they can and get some Josh Green open looks there. Miles Bridges trying to get downhill. But threes on offense, protect the rim for the most part on defense. And it doesn't mean they're very good, but it just means they don't have anything that they can go to rely on when things get absolutely terrible. And I do think that this is the first time, I agree with Charles, Doug. Like, it does feel like this is the first time that we've seen every quarter the Hornets just not have anything for the other team. Like, we have seen these guys, while it's frustrating as hell to get into this huge deficit going into the locker room at halftime, they have answered and come back with some kind of fight in the second half. This is the first time that I feel like I haven't seen any fight from this Hornets team this year, from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. So the no identity thing is interesting because it's the first time that we've gone to this space.
Well, they take so much of that fight from their ability to make shots. They don't generate that fight from the defensive end of the floor typically. And so when you saw Kumara come in with an idea of, I'm going to completely lock up LaMelo Ball, we're going to beat him up. We're going to put our hands on him, and if they call the foul, great, and if they don't, even better. And that's what happened. And you see LaMelo Ball go 1 of 10 in this game. And did try to move the basketball, and the people that he moved the basketball to were also ineffective. But they completely took LaMelo Ball out of this game, and then eventually Charles Lee said, I'm going to actually take LaMelo Ball out of this game because the game was too far afield at that point. When I say they don't have an identity, it's not that they don't know who they would like to be. It's that they cannot, because of personnel, of both personnel absent and personnel present, they don't have an identity in terms of, we know how we would like to play this game such that we can give ourselves a chance to win. I just don't think they can execute that because they've got size mismatches all over the floor. They don't have enough shooting to make a defense feel anything but just like, hey, go ahead, shoot, we don't care. And that's going to just have so many run-on effects into the way you try to play the game. Like, I feel bad. I don't think this is Charles Lee's fault that they don't have an identity. It's just like they don't have body. You cannot form an NBA identity if you don't have NBA bodies.
No, that's fair. I do think it's interesting. I don't know if that's a conversation we've had actually over the last 6 years all that much. It's Like when we talk about Cliff, right? When Cliff would have a bad game or a bad season, we know what Cliff wants to do. So that adapted a little bit as the NBA changed from the beginning of his tenure at his first stint to when he comes back and is the surprise, Kenny Atkinson doesn't want this job, so now he's here for a second stint. At the beginning, we knew low turnovers, as efficient as possible. We're going to be absolutely a top 10 to damn near top 5 defense. And then the 1 year they were top 10 in both offense and defense. They get to the playoffs. They have the 7-game series against Miami. And then we knew this is what Cliff wants to do. With Borrego, we knew what he wanted to do. It was just outscore the other team. It was get out in transition. We're going to be faster. We have this young, exciting point guard in LaMelo. And then it was interesting that, Cliff comes back and now they did try to form that identity, but the injuries were crazy the last couple of years, right? And now here it is again with Charles. So the question being, what can be formed while you have all these injuries, and what can be applicable to the coach and what can be applicable to the lack of players? Like, that's an interesting conversation to me. But I am with you in that if you don't have all of the players, I do think the coach should put something that everybody can go back and rely on. Like, hey, this is what we do. This is what we've learned every day at training camp, every day at practice, every single game that we've played. This is what we can just set our watch to, and because this is what we do best or what we want to do. But at the same time, yeah, like if you've got Musa as your tallest center sometimes, and it's going to be frustrating because Mark's out, you get the idea. I can understand where you're coming from.
I think I know exactly what Charles Lee wants to do with this Hornets team, because we heard him say it preseason, but I think we even saw some of the modeling earlier in this season. And I've identified 3 things, and I can tell you exactly why they can't do any of these 3 things, and why they couldn't do it against Portland, and why Portland punched them in the mouth. And I can do it next.
Yeah, nice tease. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Three things from Doug Branson. I could talk 3 things from Doug Branson about as to why the Hornets don't have an identity right now. And we'll also rummage through the Sicko Satchel in just a moment. All today, Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Here are a few ways you can take advantage of that deal. Late night cravings, whether you're staying up watching highlights or just need a midnight snack, use Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big. Plus, you can get lunch on the go if you need a quick and easy lunch the next day. With Dash Pass, you get your favorite meals with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees. Plus, now you even save more with an exclusive NBA offer. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. More Locked On Hornets ahead. The 3 things, Doug. Talk about the 3 things as to why the Hornets don't have an identity.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 3 things, but let me just say that simply we can diagnose, we can kind of go deep here, but we can diagnose this pretty simply by saying the Hornets are running out guys like Wendell Moore Jr. and Elfrid Payton and Damian Baugh and guys that they're plucking from not even from their G League system, but from other G League systems. And it's not a credit to those guys. I think all of them have come in and played with a ton of effort. And Damian Baugh in particular has actually executed and played a lot better than I thought he was going to play. But you're inserting these guys, and then that's why there's no offensive rhythm. That's why there's no defensive rhythm. How can you possibly establish that when you're constantly bringing in guys that aren't even in your system, that didn't practice with you at the beginning of the year and then disappeared and then suddenly came back? There's just no relationships. Okay, so that's kind of simple diagnosis. But when you look at the 3 things that he talked about, that Charles Lee talked about, and that they even tried to model early in their season, I would say play with pace. I would say MIG, most important guy, meaning the guy right up top, trying to contain the ball handler, to give your your people that are down low, your help defenders, give them time to react, and then shoot a lot of threes, which they did earlier in the season. They've stopped doing that. So you can't play with pace if you can't make the other team miss. Because today, teams that run in transition can not only run after turnovers, they run after misses. Hornets can't do that because they can't generate misses. They also can't do that because up until Nurkic arrived, they didn't have a center that could actually run the break. You've seen it. You saw it in this Portland game where they were running offense through Nurkic because Nurkic was getting the ball in his hands, and instead of waiting that half second to like find a guard, he was just bringing it up the floor, and he has the ability to pass that he can actually get into early offense. That's how you do transition, okay? Most important guy, look, I mean, they can't contain the ball. That's LaMelo Ball. That's Nick Smith Jr. That's been Josh Green at times. That's because they're playing a lot of Seth Curry. You're not going to contain the ball, and that's going to put too much pressure on Mark Williams and Yusuf Nurkic and Moussa Diabate to do work, and Tijan Salon, good God, and then shoot a lot of threes. They don't have enough shooting to do that. They can't play. They can't play 4 out. they can, forget 5 out, which is what everybody else is playing who are contending in the NBA. They can't play 4 out.
Right. So, okay, yes, those are the reasons. I agree with you with bringing in the G League guys too. That makes sense, right? I mean, if you're bringing in Elfrid Payton, you're bringing in Damian Baugh, it's going to be tough to have those guys have the identity because they weren't there in training camp. They weren't there in practice. They weren't playing every single game. Final thing on this game for me, you mentioned Kamara playing really tough defense on LaMelo. It reminded me a little bit of this Memphis game that they had played, I guess, a month and a half ago, something to that tune, where you have Jalen Wells come out and play really tough defense on LaMelo. If you don't call the foul, then so be it. This is the chance that we're going to take. They also have, it's almost like Portland is Memphis light to some degree, where you go after the young bigs who are physical. You have like some younger, more athletic guards on this team. And then you have the defensive man on LaMelo where you're just being as physical as possible with that guy. And Portland is starting to turn some heads, out west. And so it does feel like a comparison would be Memphis to a certain degree, with Portland being Memphis light. And I saw some of the similarities in this game. And yeah, one similarity is that the Hornets got blown out in each of these contests. Well,
who's going to save the Hornets, right? That would be my question, because it's, Miles Bridges, I think, did the best he could offensively. I didn't think defensively he had a great game, but he did his best offensively. But do you not think that that's the kind of defense that LaMelo Ball would see in a playoff series, right? I mean, that to me, like, that's going to be if the Hornets were suddenly, if you could wave a magic wand and put them in the playoffs right now and make everybody else healthy, I think it doesn't matter that Brandon Miller is not on the floor. That's the kind of defense that you would put on LaMelo Ball, particularly if he got off to a good start in game 1 or game 2. Like, that's the kind of defense he's going to face. So I hope it's the ankle. I hope it's hey, I haven't been able to play fully healthy this season, get into a rhythm, had some ankle issues. I'm not even playing every game anymore. I hope that's it, because the alternative is like, oh, you can shut him down, because you can't do that. Like, Kamara can't do that to SGA over a 7-game series. He can't do that to some of the other elite. You can't do that to Kyrie Irving. So that's I'm just going to leave it at that. We don't have a ton of time to get into it.
No, I hear you. Okay, like, because
I'm going to turn my head. I'm going to do my head thing. I'm going to turn my head and say, well, I'm just asking questions.
That's fine. SGA is probably going to win MVP because of, if not for voter fatigue, because he has earned it. LaMelo
I'm not sure you can do
SGA.
that to De'Aaron Fox. I'm not sure you can fully shut down De'Aaron Fox like that. Maybe on a given night. Given night. But I'm saying we've now have a couple of instances here where a very physical team with very physical guards said, all right, buddy, show us what you got. And he couldn't show you what he had.
Fair. 2 games. We got 2 games that come to mind. So, like, if it becomes a 5-game thing, I hear you. But we got 2 games where they got blown out and LaMelo didn't have a good one. But I hear you. Do you have anything else with the weekend recap? Anything where we can go through?
Mark Williams, 3 of 8 in this game, 37% from the field. Again, getting pushed. He can't get positioning close enough to the basket. He can't hit shots when he's too far away from the basket. His hands were terrible in this game. He had a few passes that would have been easy dunks that he completely fumbled away. This is not the Mark Williams that I remember. Nurkic only had 1 more point in the game, but had much more of an impact. 16 minutes versus Mark's 21 minutes. However long this charade has to go on so that the Hornets can save face because they said they were going to start Mark Williams, that's fine. You can do that. But I don't think the Hornets are really overly concerned with winning basketball games, but if you were, you would start Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah, I mean, right now you would. I know that. The thing is, I think what they want to happen is for Mark to be their guy. And so they're going to keep putting him out there for the rest of the season because they're incentivized to lose. It's not an incentive to lose by 50. That's not nice. But they are incentivized to lose, to increase their odds at capturing the flag, or if they don't get that, then getting the consolation prize of Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper. And so Mark Williams, he's the guy that they're probably going to roll with as much as possible. And he doesn't, this is Mark Williams coming back. And we never really did get your thoughts on how he performed in his debut, quote unquote, against the Lakers, his debut back after the whole trade saga. But yeah, in the post, it's not like they played a particularly physical brand of basketball in LA because they don't have a center themselves. I thought he contested a lot better on the 3-point line. And I compared that game to Milwaukee, where it's not like they were attacking Mark down low. They were just shooting a bunch of threes because of Splash Mountain. So Mark found himself on LeBron a lot. Mark found himself on Luka a lot. And I thought did actually a really good job on the perimeter. Like there were times where he actually stuck with those two guys who are considered all NBA players, but also going back to the other end of this, they didn't attack him physically. It was him looking a lot better on the perimeter. I think the rust stuff is real with him. I think the shots where if he's pushed too far out, then he's not taking jump shots. He's taking these over the left shoulder hook push shots that just aren't dropping for him. And so that's pretty frustrating. Mark, in my opinion, man, he just needs a complete reset. Like you can't get to the offseason fast enough for Mark Williams. Just whatever it looks like, because now we won't have any more excuses, right? Like so I would imagine you're done with them. And I hear you. For me, what I want to see is a reset for Mark, where we go through a complete offseason where he's healthy. And if he gets injured again, well, then, yeah, you're starting to answer that question for us with another injury. But if you get through the whole offseason without an injury, you come back next year and you still look like this, then you continue to answer these questions. If you look better, great. Now we're starting to move the needle in the other direction. But the foot injury, he's not going to play tonight against the Kings because of foot injury management. After not being able to return because of reconditioning with the whole debacle going back and forth between him and the Lakers. He had the back injury last year. It's like, okay, yeah, like you're going to have to figure out some answers here. And Mark isn't looking the part right now. So you can finish those thoughts.
I just like the idea of resetting them. I like the idea of you as like somebody that you would call for like a tech service person. What am I looking for? I'm still sick. I'm recovering here.
We're blowing in the Nintendo cartridge is what we're doing.
That's also what I thought of, but it's a Control Alt Delete. It's a reset. IT. That's what you're an IT technician here trying to figure out Mark Williams. Restart, plug him back in. Yeah, figure something out here.
Yeah, just get the pin that pushes the tiny, tiny, tiny button for a complete reset.
I think you should take Mark Williams to some kind of trade-in situation and go to the Apple Store and go find a Mac somewhere.
They tried, and the Lakers said no, thank you. One more segment to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Let's answer some sicko questions. Coming up next, we'll rummage through the satchel. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never felt like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Okay, let's get the show a reset. We can reset with the Sicko Satchel. Let's go through some of these questions from all of our beloved sickos. Doug, what's the first question you got for the people?
But before we do that, I'm sorry. While you were doing that break, I was reading through some of my notes here, and the worst part of this game for me was watching the Hornets, I don't know, down 25, down 30, at some point before they were down 50. And they were complaining about calls and complaining about the physicality that Portland was displaying. And I'm like, you're getting beaten to death. What are you doing complaining to the referees? You're being hit over the head with a chair.
Frustrating.
Like, pick up a baseball bat. What are you doing, like, complaining to your mom right now? It was just, like, so frustrating. I just want them to get players who respond to physicality with more physicality. Less talking, less complaining to the referees when you're getting beaten to death, and more like, hey, talking to each other and saying, hey, can we step it up a little bit? Can we do something about this instead of complaining to the referees? It was just like mind-numbing to watch it happen.
Who are those players? Because I think Miles is one. I think Moussa Diabate is one. I think Nurk to me is one of those guys that just more so holds his ground and is harder to move than he is somebody that responds to it. I think Nurkic is just, whatever, dude. I'm just going to set up camp, and it's going to be tough for you to move more than I see the fiery response. Josh Green is one of those like high energy guys. Again, I don't know if it's just a responding to the malcontent, but Josh Green is just flying all over the place. I do think Josh gives you still a ton of effort, whether you agree with
Josh
that
is frustrating
direction.
because he goes after that Denver game in which it looked like, okay, he gets it. He needs to be involved in the offense. He goes into this game 4 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists in 23 minutes, 1 of 6 from the field. So it's like
he just missed shots is what. Yeah, he just missed shots. That for sure, right? I'm not saying Josh Green is amazing. We're saying who are the guys that aren't as bothered by physicality? Who are the guys that are better equipped to put up with that via mentality and or body? I would say Green is towards the top of the list on that front. All right, let's go through the Satchel. What kind of questions you got?
Davis of the 8th Bismack Brigade, looking ahead to the free agent market, what do you see as the biggest need, and who should the Hornets be targeting? A little future. Yeah, let's go to the future. Forget the present. Let's get out of the present. Let's go to the future. Davis wants to know about free agency.
Well, I know you're going to go center, and that makes sense. If Nurkic is, unless you're, I don't know, talk to me about center, Doug, because I know it would be nice to have a good one right now. Mark has not been effective. We know Nurkic is somebody that you're playing like what? Right now, you're playing him pretty much less than 20 minutes a game. You just played 16 in this Portland game. I don't know how much you're going to try to ramp him up. I know that he's going to be deficient defensively for this squad. So we'll see what they do at the center spot. But do you start there or do you go somewhere else?
I think you could. Certainly not going to help your shooting, but Clint Capella is going to be an unrestricted free agent in the free agent market. That could cost you a lot of money. Now, talk about costing a lot of money. If John Collins drops his player option, he's got a $26.6 million player option with Utah. That would be an interesting look. Again, he's kind of a power forward, but would give you. And again, you're getting something back. You're going to get a little small ball lineup center back with Grant Williams. So there's a little bit coming down the pike. But yeah, I think they should look at it. Naz Reid, I don't think he's going anywhere with Memphis or with Minnesota. He's got a player option, but he might. But he's playing. He's looking pretty ridiculous for Minnesota right now. He might decline the player option, but I don't think Minnesota is going to let him go anywhere. Steven Adams going to be an unrestricted free agent with Houston right now. So, yeah, I think there will be some options to open up that center spot. Or you could even go super veteran and go Al Horford.
You could do that. Well, my thing is it's kind of a cop-out because it's the hardest archetype to go get in the NBA. But that guy, hopefully, is coming to you in the draft, right? I mean, if it's Cooper Flagg, who is your 3 that can go create for himself and do a whole bunch of stuff, Cooper is the nice addition. If that means it's Ace Bailey, who is the other taller. I've seen him compared to Brandon Miller, by the way. So if you just have Brandon Miller and Ace Bailey at 2-3, well, then you go get that hard archetype to go get. So I'm not sure what but this is specifically in free agency. I get you. But man, just having that type of player to put in between Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges as the roster is currently constructed is going to be a huge help. Even if Cooper more so like NBA ready, I would say like right now, it feels like with his game. I don't know as much about Bailey, but that body, that kind of skill set is going to come in handy for every team, including the Hornets.
Well, that's the thing. If you get Cooper, even if you don't get Cooper, I don't think this team needs a great center. They just need a physical center. They need a center that can dribble and pass a little bit. Again, they don't need to be elite at any of these skills. You just need a center that can help you run your break. You need a center that can be physical and rebound and do some of the things that Nurkic is going to do for you next season unless you move him in the offseason because he's under contract. So I think, honestly, you could look at center for particularly your depth, but I think if you've got a mind to move Mark Williams, you do have some things in Nurkic that could help you win. But then, obviously they've got to look for shooting. I think that's the second biggest need, if not 1A. They've got to find some additional shooting. And again, they theoretically will be getting a little bit of that back with Grant Williams and Trey Mann. So there's a how much question, but even when those guys were fully healthy, I didn't think the Hornets had enough shooting. So they've got to continue to look for that as well, Davis.
Okay, what other question do you have for the people?
Hallie of the 12th Dwight Howard Division wants to know about food prices at Spectrum Center because the Hornets will return home at some point. They've been on the road for a very long time. But what are food prices at Spectrum Center like, and did they go up after the renovations?
Walker, it's important
you're going to be the full expert here on this.
Well, I mean, it's tough because I remember Joe Ovia said this one time, and it made a ton of sense. It's if you are a member of the media, it's good to go to the teams that you cover. It's good to go to like one game, maybe a year, maybe 2 games a year as a fan to experience what the fans experience, whether it be the ticket prices, the food and drink prices, the game day experience, your environment around you. I did that with the Hornets not too long ago, and it was great. I forget what the prices were. I did not pull the trigger on that. So I was trying to think of what they were. I will be going on March 3rd, so I'll be going to the Golden State game as a fan, bringing my mom, huge Steph Curry fan. She's excited. But going to go there, and I'll have better answers for you. But this is where David Walker, this is his time to shine and get the fan experience because he's going to the games all the time. Same thing with Rod Morrow. He'd be great.
We'll get some intel from David pretty soon. Nada might have some thoughts on this as well. And then Hallie, we'll put a pin in this and we'll continue to do research. That's what this show does. Lots and lots of research.
That's right. We'll do that. All right. You want to finish up with that one or do you want to go with one more?
Oh, that's it. We've got a good one from Shuman. I'll preview this one from Shuman of the 22nd Mullins Regiment, who wants to know how this injured lineup, so no Melo, Mark, Grant, Trey, or Brandon, how they would match up against the 2012 Bobcats. But we're going to save that sicko sadness for another episode.
Aren't teases supposed to want to make people listen? Like
I don't know. I'll say this 2012 Bobcats team had a lot of fun names. They've got a lot of DJ Whites, a lot of Derek Browns.
Oh, God.
So if you're into that, come on board.
DJ White, that's a name I haven't heard of in a while. You got to name a division after DJ White with the next division you create. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. Listen to him on Locked On NBA. Also, check out his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.